The chair across from me was still warm when she said it. I had a date last night. No thunder, no trembling hands, just her voice, calm and clean like she was reporting the weather. I didn't look up right away. My spoon was still inside the cereal bowl, slowly sinking beneath a layer of soggy flakes. I stirred it once, twice. Then I asked as softly as I could manage, "You did?" She nodded, no shame in her eyes, not even the courtesy to lie. I noticed then that her lipstick was gone. The shade she usually wore, something soft and pink, was replaced by nothing. Bare lips, slightly chapped, kissed too much maybe. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the kitchen clock, the neighbor's dog barking twice like it always did when the garbage truck passed. She sat down like we were going to discuss weekend plans, her elbows on the table, her fingers laced together, her wedding ring pressed lightly into the wooden surface. "I wanted to feel different," she said, like I mattered again. I didn't speak, not because I was angry. No. Anger would have been easier. I didn't speak because I was doing math in my head, counting all the times she said she was tired, all the nights she turned away, all the mornings she skipped coffee with me, saying she was late for work. She had a date while I folded her laundry, and watered the plants while I changed the smoke detector batteries. While I saved the last piece of pie for her like I always did. I swallowed hard. My throat felt lined with splinters. She waited for me to ask something, for a reaction, for anything. Instead, I pushed the bowl away and said just one line. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't loud. It was barely louder than a whisper. But it struck her harder than any scream ever could. "I hope he treated you like a temporary escape because that's what you turned me into." She flinched. Just a flicker, but I saw it. The blink, the exhale, the way her fingers unclasped. She wanted me to fight, to rage, to beg for an explanation. But I gave her the truth instead, and the truth hurt her more than she expected. She stood up, walked to the sink, and ran the tap, even though there were no dishes in her hands. Just running water in silence. My cereal was now a cold, swollen mess. I didn't care. This wasn't the end, I knew that. It was the first time. I didn't chase her upstairs. It's the first time I didn't ask where she'd been. And for a man like me, who always forgave too quickly, that was a kind of ending too. She didn't turn off the faucet. She stood there, back to me, the water running loud enough to cover her breathing. But I heard it anyway. Short, shallow inhales like she was trying to hold something in. I didn't move from my chair, didn't ask. What she was thinking? I'd given her my sentence, and now I was just watching what it did to the room. You think a marriage ends with shouting? With doors slamming, with packed bags or confession letters or a dramatic storm out in the rain? But sometimes it ends with the sound of water hitting an empty sink and two people trying not to speak at the same time. She finally broke the silence with a half-laugh, sharp and thin. She said, her voice cracking. "So that's where we are now?" I didn't answer. She turned off the tap but stayed where she was. One hand braced against the counter like the floor had started shifting beneath her feet. I stared at her ring again. It was still on, still gleaming under the kitchen light like it had the right to be there. "I never meant to hurt you," she mumbled, barely audible. "I didn't even know I was going to tell you. It just came out, because it didn't feel wrong anymore," I said. And that wasn't a question. She turned around then, and her eyes met mine for the first time that morning. There was fear in them. Not fear of me, fear of the silence I was giving her. I was always the one who rushed in to fix things, who filled the air with apologies and compromises and soft promises. But now, I was just still, and that unsettled her. "You're not saying anything," she whispered. "I did," I replied, "and you heard it." She looked down. The light caught the scar on her chin, the one she got tripping. Off the deck steps years ago during our New Year's game night, I remembered how I carried her inside, how she laughed through the pain, how she teased me for overreacting. Back when everything was simple, before things got slippery in ways we couldn't even name. "I thought you'd ask who he was," she said. Like that would bait me into something. "I don't need to know," I replied. "He's someone who wanted you for a night, and you let him." She winced like the words were knives. Maybe they were, but she'd chosen them first. The weight in the room got thicker. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, but I didn't clench them. I just rested my hands on my knees and waited for whatever came next. She walked slowly to the coffee maker and started filling the reservoir, as if brewing a pot of coffee would make this all go away. As if rituals could erase betrayal. "You're being really cold," she said, "and you're being really calm for someone who just admitted to destroying us," I shot back. Quieter than I intended, but sharp enough to cut through her performance. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for a mug. Not mine, hers. The one with the purple flowers on it, a gift from her sister. She used to pour coffee for both of us every morning. Now she was making just one. Maybe that was the part that hit hardest. "I think we should talk," she said finally. I stood up. Not because I agreed, not because I was ready, but because I couldn't sit in that chair anymore without feeling like I was nailed to it. "No," I said. "I think you should sit with what you did first, if you still want to talk after that. I'll be outside." I didn't wait for her to reply. I walked out the back door, barefoot into the morning air. The deck boards were cold beneath my feet. Birds chirped. The sky was soft blue. And somewhere just under the surface, my life had cracked wide open. The breeze outside was colder than I expected. Spring hadn't fully settled in yet. I sat down on the back steps with my arms resting on my knees, trying to focus on the smell of damp wood and the rustling of the leaves instead of the wildfire behind me. It felt strange being out there alone. Usually Button, our cat, would squeeze through the screen door and curl beside me. But she must have sensed the tension too. Even animals know when something's gone wrong. I wasn't counting minutes, but I knew a lot of them passed. I heard no footsteps behind me, no creaking of the floorboards, no click of the door handle. Just the wind brushing through the trees and a neighbor's sprinkler kicking on. I pulled my phone from my hoodie pocket and stared at the lock screen, a photo of the two of us in Tennessee last year. She was holding a cup of apple cider, wrapped in my flannel, cheeks pink from the chill, laughing at something I said. I didn't remember the joke. I just remembered how much I loved her in that moment. Now, looking at that picture, I felt like I was spying on strangers. Eventually, the door behind me did open, but she didn't say anything. She just leaned against the door frame and stood there like she was waiting for an invitation to re-enter the scene. I didn't turn to look at her. I kept my eyes on the woods at the edge of our yard and asked quietly, "Was it the first time?" Pause. Then a breath. "No." And with that one word, something unhooked inside me. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I just nodded once. I guess part of me already knew. The night she said she was at her friend Tessa's birthday, but came home with mascara smeared halfway down her cheek. The weekend she claimed to be visiting her mother in the hospital but never sent any photos, didn't pick up any of my calls. The morning, she was too cheerful, too rested, too satisfied. "How many times?" I asked. "I don't think I should answer that right now," she replied. "It'll only make things worse." Too late. She shifted behind me, the floor creaking under her weight. I didn't plan for it to become anything, it just happened. I was lonely. I let out a humorless chuckle. "You were lonely while I was sitting 6 feet away from you every night. You weren't really there, Elmer," she said. "You were working, reading, folding laundry like a ghost. We didn't talk, we just existed." My knuckles turned white as I gripped the edge of the step. I wanted to say 1,000 things. Wanted to scream that I stayed, that I tried, that I washed her hair in the shower when she was sick, that I memorized the way she liked her eggs, that I once drove 3 hours in the rain to get her the lemon pie she liked because she said she was having a bad day. But I didn't say any of that because none of it mattered now. "So what is this then?" I finally asked. "Some slow-motion breakup? You tell me the truth 1 teaspoon at a time until I eventually do the dirty work and leave you? That's not fair." She snapped. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said, standing up finally and facing her for the first time. "Are you the one eating cold cereal at midnight while your spouse gets kissed by someone else?" Her lips tightened. She looked away, her arms crossed over her chest like she was shielding herself from the weight of her own choices. "Think you in love with him?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Not yes, not no. And that silence said more than I was ready to hear. I stepped past her and went back into the house. The smell of her perfume was still in the air, that same musky sweetness that didn't belong to me anymore. I walked straight to the bedroom and opened the closet, stared at the row of clothes I hadn't touched in years. I didn't pack anything, not yet, but I pulled out a duffel bag and set it on the bed, just in case, because something inside me had shifted too. And for the first time in 12 years, I wasn't sure if we could ever be us again. I didn't unzip the bag for hours. It sit there on the bed like a quiet threat, like a warning I wasn't brave enough to carry out. I sat at the edge of the mattress, staring at it the way you stare at a fire alarm that hasn't gone off yet. Part of me hoped she'd come in and stop me. Part of me hoped she wouldn't. That's the twisted thing. When someone betrays you slowly over time, your hope starts turning against you. It starts lying to you. It says maybe it's not that bad. Even when everything inside you is screaming that it is, she didn't follow me. Not after our last words out on the deck. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Half an hour. Still nothing. No knock, no apology, no pathetic excuse. Just the distant sound of the vacuum cleaner humming somewhere down the hallway. She was cleaning. That's what she chose to do after everything. She was vacuuming. I stood up, opened the closet, and slowly started grabbing random things. A few shirts, underwear, socks. My old gray hoodie, she once said, made me look like someone who fixes computers in a cabin. I remembered how we laughed about it then, how she used to curl up in that same hoodie on cold evenings while we watched documentaries neither of us understood. Now it smelled like the back of the closet, stale and untouched. I wasn't leaving. Yet, not officially, but I needed to see how it felt to touch the life I might have to restart. I zipped the bag halfway and left it on the bed. Then I sat down again, head in my hands. The house was too quiet, even with the low drone of the vacuum still dragging across carpeted floors. My phone buzzed once. Text, I checked it without thinking and instantly regretted it. Unknown number, no name attached. Hey, had a great time last night. Let me know when you can meet again. The words hit me in waves. At first I was numb, and I read them again, slower. The emoji at the end felt like a knife made of cartoon plastic. I didn't need to ask who it was. The message wasn't for me. She forgot to delete it. Maybe she didn't forget. Maybe she didn't care anymore. Or maybe worse, she thought I wouldn't have the nerve to check. I didn't respond. I didn't forward it to her. I just stared at the message for a long while, then locked my phone and placed it face down on the nightstand. I went into the bathroom, splashed water on my face, stared at my own reflection. I looked old. Not in the way gray hairs or wrinkles make you look old, but in the way grief does. Like something inside you has lived 3 lifetimes in a single week. When I stepped out, I found her standing in the hallway. She was holding a basket of laundry, barefoot, looking at me like she'd walked into the wrong room. Her eyes dropped to the bag on the bed. "You're leaving?" she asked. Her voice clipped like she was trying to hold the word steady. "I don't know," I replied honestly. She didn't move. "We can fix this, Elmer. Can we?" I asked, not sarcastically, just exhausted. "I made a mistake," she said. I cut. You made a decision. Mistake is forgetting to close the fridge. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. You didn't trip and fall into this? Her hands tightened around the laundry basket. "You're angry. I get it." "I'm not even angry," I said, and I meant it. I'm just out of questions. And the worst part was I really was. I'd always been full of questions. What can I do better? Why are you distant? Is everything okay? Do you still love me? But now, nothing. My mind was like a library after a fire. A few charred books, maybe, but mostly just silence. She set the laundry basket down slowly on the floor, as if placing it too fast would break something. "I never stopped loving you," she said, but the moment was already over. I walked past her. Down the stairs, into the kitchen. I poured a glass of water, drank it too fast. My hands were trembling. I didn't want to pack. I didn't want to sleep in my car. I didn't want to tell my family that the woman I adored had found comfort in a stranger's bed. I didn't want any of this, but I wanted even less to stay in a house where the truth had become background noise. For the first time, I realized something much scarier than betrayal. She wasn't afraid of losing me, not even a little. The next morning wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It just existed. The light came in through the kitchen window, the way it always did, soft and hazy. The smell of brewed coffee was in the air, but I hadn't made any. I hadn't even gone to bed, to be honest. I'd spent the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the occasional creak of footsteps above me. Whether she was pacing or couldn't sleep, I didn't know. I sat there as the sun rose, curled beneath an old blanket we used to fight over during movie nights. Her perfume still lingered faintly on the fabric. I hated that I noticed. I hated that a part of me still wanted to believe it meant something. Eventually I got up and went to the garage. Not for any reason, not to grab tools or fix something. I just needed to be away from all the rooms where her voice used to matter. I stepped over cardboard boxes and unused camping gear and old picture frames we never hung. That's when I saw it wedged behind a stack of winter coats and a broken lamp. A wooden keepsake box, one I hadn't seen in years. It was hers. I recognized the scratched lid, the tiny silver clasp. Remember when she got it, one of those quirky antique store finds she adored. She used to keep notes in there, postcards, ticket stubs, receipts from dinners that meant something. It was supposed to be our memory box, but it had been sealed for so long I'd forgotten it even existed. I knelt down, wiped the dust off the top, and hesitated before opening it. Inside, it was still neat, still organized in that chaotic, beautiful way she did everything. Tiny envelopes, folded napkins, a dried-out flower, notes I'd written her on sticky pads. The kind of stuff that, if you weren't part of it, would seem meaningless. But to us, it used to be everything. And there, buried beneath a stack of old photos, was something I didn't expect. A hotel keycard, white plastic, no logo, just a room. Number, written in ink. 217. There was no date, no name, just that. My stomach turned. It could have been from years ago. It could have been meaningless. But in that moment, holding it in my hand, all I could hear was her voice from the day before. I had a date last night, and I knew. She didn't just go to dinner. She went there. I stood in that garage with the keycard in one hand and 1,000 questions crowding my lungs. My first instinct was to throw it, break something, slam a door, or shatter glass, but I didn't. I placed it gently back inside the box, shut the lid, and held it to my chest for a moment, like some kind of broken relic. Ow. Then I heard the door open behind me. She was standing there in a t-shirt and pajama pants, barefoot again. Her face looked tired, but not devastated, just worn out, like someone who'd stayed up all night, making peace with a decision. "You found it," she said, nodding at the box. I did. It was a long pause. She looked down at her feet. "You're not saying anything," I said. "Enough yesterday." "I didn't use that key card," she blurted out. I raised my eyes to her. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not," she insisted. I took it. I went there. But I sat in the room alone and cried for an hour. I couldn't go through with it. I didn't know whether to believe her. That's the thing about betrayal. You stop knowing what's real. Every memory becomes suspect. Every sentence sounds rehearsed. Then why keep it? I asked. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe because I hated myself for even considering it. Maybe because I thought if I ever looked at it again, it would remind me what I almost became." "But you did become it," I said quietly. "With someone else. Somewhere else." She didn't argue. She just nodded, tears collecting in her eyes but not falling. "I've lost you, haven't I?" "Shh," she whispered. "I don't know yet," I replied. And I meant that. Because right now, I was standing in a garage, holding a box full of things that used to mean love, and all I felt was grief. I walked past her and back into the house. My duffel bag was still on the bed upstairs, half full. But now there was something else packed too: doubt. And that's the heaviest thing of all. That evening I didn't eat dinner. I heard her moving around in the kitchen, pans clinking, water running, the faint scratch of a knife on the cutting board. But I didn't go in. I couldn't sit across from her and pretend that the silence was just tiredness. I wasn't tired. I was hollow. There's a difference. Instead, I sat in my office, the smallest room in the house, the one I had once claimed as my quiet corner. It still smelled faintly of old books and dust, and the peppermint oil she once insisted I diffuse to lighten the mood. I hated that oil. I kept using it anyway. I stared at the computer screen for what must have been an hour, not typing anything, not reading anything, just thinking about the box, the key card. The message, all these clues I didn't want, stacking up like a puzzle I was too scared to solve. There's a point where betrayal isn't just about someone else's choices. It becomes a mirror, a sharp one. And suddenly, you're not sure what part you played in letting it all rot. Around 9 p.m., there was a soft knock on the door frame. She stood there holding a plate in her hands. Chicken, rice, steamed vegetables, her peace offering. "Made you a plate?" she said. I didn't move. I walked in slowly and set it down on the desk beside me. Her hands lingered on the edge of the plate, as if she didn't want to let go, as if letting go meant I would too. "I saw your phone earlier," she added. I turned toward her slowly, and her eyes met mine with a flicker of guilt. The message from him. "You weren't supposed to see that?" "No," I replied coldly. "But I did." Wasn't what it sounded like. "Which part?" I said. "The great time last night or the wink?" She flinched, then looked down. "He texted me without knowing I was done." "Were you?" I asked. "Swear she said I told him yesterday that I couldn't keep doing it, that I was choosing you." I laughed. It was small and bitter. "You chose me after you already made your exit." "That's not a choice. That's guilt, maybe," she said. But I meant it. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "You know what really haunts me? It's not the fact that you cheated. It's the part where I know you didn't think it was wrong until you've got caught in the reflection of it." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "And now," I continued, "you're standing here with a plate of chicken and rice like it's going to erase anything? I'm trying. Try quieter," I snapped. She left the plate there and backed out of the room like a shadow retreating. I heard her walk down the hall and close the bedroom door. Not slam, not stomp, just a click. I stared at the plate for a while. Then I opened a drawer and pulled out the spiral-bound notebook I hadn't used since college. I flipped through the blank pages, found one that felt right, and began to write. Wasn't a letter, not exactly. It was more like a record, a raw, rambling list of what I remembered. What I lost, what she said, what she didn't say. Every time she looked me in the eye and told me she was tired or busy or needed space, I wrote it down. I wrote the date. Said she was going to her sister's, but forgot that her sister was out of town. I wrote the night she came home smelling like clove cigarettes when neither of us smoked. It didn't make me feel better. It didn't clear the fog, but it made something real. The truth wasn't just in her actions. It was in the quiet moments I had ignored, the long pauses in conversations, the way she stopped asking if I wanted to come with her, the night she fell asleep facing the wall. That notebook filled up faster than I expected. At midnight, I stood in the hallway outside our bedroom door and just listened. She wasn't crying. She wasn't restless. She was asleep. And somehow that hurt more than anything else because it meant she was already finding peace in the wreckage. While I was still trying to remember how to breathe, the next day didn't start with a confrontation. It started with orange juice. I walked into the kitchen at 8:11 a.m., still in my wrinkled t-shirt, my hair sticking up on one side, half expecting to see her gone already. But she wasn't. She was there, standing at the counter in silence, pouring a glass of orange juice. Like we were back in 2017, like the last 3 days hadn't happened. She didn't even flinch when I stepped in. She didn't say good morning or how did you sleep. Just handed me the glass wordlessly as if we were co-workers in a shared office kitchen. That stunned me more than anything. I took it. My fingers touched hers. Neither of us reacted. That touch used to mean everything. I watched her put the carton back in the fridge, tighten the cap as if precision could make her seem blameless. I cleared my throat. "You really just going to act like this is fine?" She closed the fridge but didn't look at me. "What do you want me to say, Elmer?" "I want to know when you stopped being scared of lying to me," I said. "When did I become that person? The one you could lie to and still sleep next to like it didn't matter?" She leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "I don't know. Maybe when I realized you wouldn't leave, no matter what I did. That stopped me. It was the most honest thing she'd said in weeks. It was like she punched me in the lungs with it. My ears rang. You think that's strength? I asked. You think staying meant I didn't see you drifting away? I think staying meant you were more comfortable with the image of us than the reality. The image, she said, repeating it, stunned. The nights we stayed up eating cereal and laughing at dumb movies. The way you used to whisper, "Don't die before me," when I had a cold. You think that was just an image? I think it's what you needed, she said, and there was something almost cruel in the softness of her tone. A neat little version of life that didn't ask too much of you. And I played along for years. I stepped back, staring at her like I was seeing a stranger. You rewrote our marriage to justify your choices. That's what you're doing now. You're not explaining. You're rebranding. Call it what you want, she said. But I was drowning, Elmer, and you were too busy documenting the wallpaper to notice. That hurt because it wasn't entirely false, either. Were moments, weeks even, where I coasted, where I let routines become our rhythm. I stopped asking her what she dreamed about. I stopped reaching across the bed in the middle of the night just to feel her heartbeat. I had convinced myself that comfort was enough, but comfort doesn't save you from fire, just makes the burning slower. I put down the glass. I'm going to stay at my brother's for a few days. She blinked. That caught her off guard. Just long. Enough to hear my own voice again, I said. Right now, it feels like yours is living in my head, rewriting every memory I thought was sacred. Don't do this, she whispered, but she didn't step forward. She didn't reach for me. She didn't cry. And that was the moment I knew. She wanted me to leave first. She didn't want to be the one to end it. She wanted to set fire to the house, but be the last one out, holding a bucket of water so she could claim she tried. I packed by noon. It's not everything, just what I needed to feel human for a few days. Some clothes, my toothbrush, the notebook I've been filling with every fractured piece of this collapse. I left my wedding ring in the drawer by the bed, not as a statement, just because it didn't feel right to keep it on. Not anymore. As I walked toward the front door, she was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, staring at the TV that wasn't on. She didn't look up, not even when I turned the knob. I stood there for one final moment, half waiting for her to say something, anything. But all she said was, "Will you text me when you get there?" And I did something I wasn't proud of. Closed the door without answering. I didn't cry when I left the house. Not during the drive. Not when I parked outside my brother Jonah's apartment with the duffel bag in the passenger seat, like a quiet witness to everything I couldn't say out loud. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, engine off, listening to the ticking of the dashboard. As the metal cooled, my palms were sweating. My throat hurt. But I didn't cry. Jonah opened the door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt and gave me a look that said he already knew everything. That's the thing about brothers. You don't have to say much. He moved aside without a word and let me in. No judgment, no probing questions, just space. He offered me his guest room, which used to be his guitar studio, but had since turned into a graveyard of unopened Amazon boxes and a beanbag chair shaped like a pizza slice. I didn't care. I slept on top of the covers that first night, clothes still on, phone face down on the nightstand. I didn't set an alarm, didn't check messages. I just exhaled. The next few days passed slowly. There was something healing about being out of that house. I drank coffee without watching her walk barefoot into the kitchen. I sat on the balcony at night and listened to the city sounds instead of the creak of our stairs. I didn't write in the notebook. I didn't need to. For the first time in what felt like months, my mind wasn't crowded. Jonah didn't ask questions until day 3. He just handed me a grilled cheese and said, "So, how's the wreckage?" I laughed. It surprised me. "I think the fire's out," I said. "There's just a lot of smoke." "You going to rebuild?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I said. "But I'm not going back into a house that still smells like gasoline." He nodded, chewing. "That's fair." And then, later that night, I got a text. It wasn't long, just one line. "I'm sitting on the back porch. Your mug is still here." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then came another. I know I wrecked everything, but I cleaned the closet today and cried when I found the hoodie you hated and still wore. You were always better than me. That line broke something inside me in a new way. Not like before, not bitter, just soft. I didn't reply right away. I let the night pass, let myself sleep. And in the morning I drove back. Not because everything was fixed, not because I forgave her, but because I needed to see if the silence between us had changed. She was on the porch, knees pulled to her chest, hair in a loose bun, my chipped coffee mug in her hands. Up when she heard my car. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She stood up slowly, and I swear in that one moment I saw her. I really saw her for the first time in months. Not as the version I needed her to be, not as the woman who betrayed me, but as someone standing knee-deep in regret, trying to figure out how to live through it. "I'm not asking you to stay," she said before I even reached the steps. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry for all of it." "I know," I said. "I miss you," she added, voice breaking. "I miss me too," I said. She nodded. "Do you want to come in? Just for coffee?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because it felt too easy. Then she said, "You don't have to say anything. Don't owe me anything. I just thought maybe we could sit in silence and let it be quiet in a good way, not the kind we used to have." And so I did something I didn't expect myself to do. I walked up the steps. I took the mug from her hands. I held it between mine, still warm, and she sat beside me, just far enough away to give me space, but close enough that if I wanted to reach out, I could. We didn't talk for a long time. We just listened to the wind and the birds and the hum of the world starting to breathe again. And then, without thinking, I reached for her hand. She didn't squeeze it. She didn't pull away. There between us, like a